developer schools around here. So BitMaker Lab is actually very interested in holding this meetup here. We just couldn't do it because of logistics today, so we plan on doing some with them in the future. They're very interested in Ethereum, interested in offering courses down the road, and I'm hoping Jeff actually going to speak. Jeff does a technical meetup here every week, and they actually I spoke to them last week, and they actually would love to do something with you more Ethereum based. So that's what it's going to be. It's going to get to the other schools that are teaching other development courses and get them in Ethereum, and then having courses that people can start taking.
Yeah, I mean, like anything of that kind is always good to see it.
One more question, anybody?
Yeah, over here.
Nancy.
Does Vitalik have a girlfriend yet?
No.
You always love to bring that. Okay. Thanks for calling.
Okay.
Thank you very much. So we're going to have Jeff come up for a very brief time to talk about one of the Ethereum wallets. Eterwallet.org.
There we go. Hey, EthereumWallet.com.
Right. Yay! Now we can use the Ethereum logo too.
Yeah. All right. That's the announcement I forgot to make. Well, basically all our logos are released under Creative Commons attribution. So go ahead.
Very good.
So yeah, this is one of these Ethereum wallets that we threw together. It's very simple, and I'm just going to walk you guys through it and give you a basic idea. For those who aren't familiar, CryptoKit is a company that produces software for cryptocurrency and privacy and these sorts of things. How many people here have heard of the company CryptoKit? Maybe raise your hand. Large number of you. How many people are familiar with our product Rush Wallet? Okay, so those of you who aren't familiar, Rush Wallet is a product very similar to this. It's a really, really fast wallet to create. You just go to rushwallet.com and squiggle your mouse, and then you can send and receive Bitcoins. And this is the same concept for Ethereum. So as the website says, this is not an official release. It's still a beta. It's something that we would recommend don't put your life savings into this right now. If there's a bug, that would be terrible. But let's just take a little look at that. So if you go to our beta, nice big warning sign there at the top, all you have to do is you're going to take your mouse and you're just going to move it around like this. Why are we doing that? And the reason that you move your mouse around like that is you're generating a private key that only you have. So this is not like a lot of wallet services where you go into a website and you're depositing your money with them at an exchange or something like this, where they're the ones that hold on to the private keys. In this situation, you are the one who's in control of your private keys. So you are the one who actually holds your Ether. You're not giving your Ether to us. And when you squiggle your finger like that, you're making a private key that is going to control those Ether. So then you might ask, well, where is it? It's a website. If you look up at the top here, you're going to see that after you scrolled your finger, a whole bunch of random letters and numbers appeared up at the top there. And that's where your private key is stored. So right now, I'm not going to use this and put any money into it, because all of you can see the private key. That bookmark is secret and private, and anyone who gets your bookmark can get your wallet. If that's a little too insecure for you, which it should sound very insecure, there was a little box there where you could add a password. So definitely encourage you to use that. But the idea here is now that you've made a wallet, all you have to do is you bookmark it. And that's it, that's your wallet. Anytime you go back to that bookmark, your private key is going to be used to access your funds, and you're in control of them. I'll tell you guys a little bit more about how this is set up from a technical point of view. So you're going to a website, and this page is being loaded off a website, but everything that's done with the keys and with signing and the control of your Ether is done on your computer. It's not done on our server. So what happens is that the code is downloaded from the website, and it accesses the key locally from your bookmark. This part after the pound sign there, after the number sign there, is never sent to the server. It's kept just locally on your computer. That's part of how the URL specification works in all modern browsers. And that key locally on your computer, never on our server, is used to figure out what your Ether account address is up here, and to check your balance, to sign transactions when you send them. Over here, you can see a QR code. That's hopefully going to be a really easy way to send and receive, including on mobile. We're working on getting that added.
Actually, done that today.
We got added today.
That's not in the beta. But not in the beta, but we've actually got the cameras getting working on Android.
Yeah, so we've got it working, and it'll get out soon, where you'll be able to very easily send and receive Ether by just pulling up your cell phone, load this up, and scan on Android initially. Scan the QR code to someone else and send and receive Ether. So that's the basic overview of Ethereum Wallet. So then we just quickly threw together. Works very much like Rushball. Does anybody have any questions about it?
I'll be back up.
Good, great question. You absolutely need to have a backup of all your wallets. So in this case, what you're going to back up is the bookmark. If you want, you can take that bookmark and write it down. If you really wanted to, you could actually take this website and go and load it on an offline computer and generate your bookmark completely offline and write it down. That would make it really hard to send transactions, but it would be more secure. So yeah, the important part is your bookmark up there. As long as you've saved your bookmark, and if you have a password, obviously you need to save your password as well.
So one thing I really want to stress is we don't have your private key. If you lose your funds, we can't recover them. You keep that bookmark. You are responsible for everything.
Yes.
You cannot recover no matter what. You could put a gun to our head and you cannot recover your dollars.
Yes.
We've got people contact us going, no, it's gotta be waiting. We lost it. No, we have no possible way of doing it. Vitalik, since this is Ethereum and we have these smart contracts, have you considered an approach for money or the Ether is stored in contracts and like you can recover but only after say 200 days?
Definitely, and like we said, this is a very early piece, but we definitely want to start taking advantage of the characteristics of Ethereum. The whole point of Ethereum is that you can write these more elaborate controls and they will be actually enforced at the chain level. Simple examples would be exactly what you described, where you can reset your password if you haven't accessed your wallet in 200 days. Or another example would be putting a spending limit where you can only spend a certain amount per week or per day or something like that. And that's something we're very much interested in doing. So this is beta. We're just getting the basics up there, but we definitely have plans to expand and include more of the functionality that's unique to Ethereum.
To generate the wallet, once I go to the web page, can I turn off my internet connection to generate without internet connection?
You can if you get all the files. So another thing for those of you who are a little more technical here. All of the JavaScript that is running on this page, or at least the most important part, I think, not the libraries, but those are public libraries that you can verify. So these files in here are code that has not been minified or compressed. It is readable. So if you are a person who understands JavaScript, we strongly encourage you to read this code and see that it does actually keep your key locally and does not send it to a server or some nefarious location. If you have all of this JavaScript offline, because it doesn't communicate with the server to generate the wallet, yes, you could generate a wallet offline. At this point, we don't have a really simple way for you to sign your transactions offline and then bring them online. But if all you really want is an address that you can send Ether to that's very secure, this would be one way to do it. Another way to do it would be using like a paper wallet generator or something like that.
Maybe it's because you have to trust your computer that you are using is secure.
Right, and one thing I would caution you is if you don't know anything about this and you don't understand any of the code yourself, just because you generate offline doesn't guarantee that it's secure. You also need to have some confidence that the code is doing what it's supposed to be doing. So the way in which the address is generated could be from a malicious website. Even if you do it offline, it could be generated in such a way that we can still access your files. So we haven't done that, and we encourage you to review our code and to verify that we've done it that way. What we're aiming for here is an increased level of transparency compared to a lot of web apps. So being able to read the code if you can read JavaScript and to verify that the program does actually do what it says it does. And the fact that we do not actually have any control over your ether, and you actually do have complete control is very important. So, B.
Have you checked to make sure that none of the JavaScript sits on the server is controlled by Google? The very specific reason why I'm asking is because the Augur CL website had this problem, is because of that I got blocked by China's Great Firewall.
It's fine. None of it is on Google servers. It's all on Amazon.
Yeah, it's China, great.
At present, a lot of these in-browser wallets are a little bit limited in terms of firewalls, in terms of being used over Tor and some of these things. So unfortunately, that's kind of the limitations of the approach. But hopefully, something can improve in the future.
Everything is on the same server though, so if you can access blocking, you're allowed to everything. Unless you're blocking specific JavaScript or CSS or something weird.
I haven't seen China do that yet.
Yeah.
So, sorry, B, you talked about like, there's a few different walls. I think like in the last week, there's been 3 walls.
Well, there's ethereumwallet.org, then there was that my Bitcoin or my.
Well, paper wallets and brain wallets came out yesterday.
Oh yeah, that address. Yeah.
That's in 1 week. I mean, I can imagine what's going to be coming out the next, you know, I don't know how many Bitcoin had back in the day, but to have something like that in 1 week, I think it's just exploding in that wallet.
Yeah, no, it's definitely growing. Also, it would probably be good to thank Martin Bexey, who's our sort of primary JavaScript developer. He's written a lot of the libraries that are behind these.
Absolutely, and if you're curious which libraries we're using, we are using the Ethereum.js libraries. They're all.
Actually, scroll down a little bit. I listed them all there, so you can. Oh, easier. You can scroll. It's not that.
You use a mouse over there, so that's cool. That's very hot.
It's just the very top there. If that comment. Oh, here? Oh, yes, that tells you which files to fit.
So basically this for those of you who are more technical, this package.json explains all of the third-party libraries that we're using. That you can verify that we are actually using the actual library and not some random modified version.
All right, I think we're done here. We got about 5-minute break.
One more question directly behind you there. Okay.
So if I understand correctly, private.
Right. So if you have other people who have access to your computer, you definitely should use the password option. The password option will encrypt that string so that without your password, it cannot be accessed. Definitely, if you are just using this in a plain browser, it will be running to your browser history, so be aware of that. There are advantages and disadvantages to that. One, if you forget to bookmark it, then maybe you can find it in your browser history. But if you are willing to take the risk, of course, you can use the incognito mode or some other mode that is not going to store that information in your history. Be aware, you do then have to have it stored somewhere else, otherwise no access to your URL means no access to your phone.
Also, a lazy way to back it up is to just take a picture.
That's true, yeah. As long as you have a browser that's displaying the full URL, watch out, a lot of browsers these days just display ethereumwallet.com and you have to click on the URL to get the full URL. But as long as you have everything, all this red and gobbledygook after the pound sign there, as long as you have that information, then you're good to go.
From a security standpoint, you should also be aware of what extensions you have installed. Extensions might do interesting things.
Right, so from a security point of view, this is on the lighter end of security. It's more secure than just giving your ether to someone else because you have control. But anything that can compromise your local computer can compromise this wallet. So if you get a virus on your computer, they could just check your password as you're logging in. If you have a bad browser extension, it can potentially, I mean, lots of the browsers do a certain amount of work to try and insulate the extensions from each other, but it still happens.
Honestly, there might be an extension that, for example, stores your bookmarks in S3 or something, or shares your bookmarks of the world, so you can out that.
Encrypt the password.
Yes, encryption is always very good.
Large format forwards.
Oh, totally.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Jeff. Thank you.
On mobile, is there any chance you can actually take like the other QR codes?
So right now we've got Android, probably be after some testing got done today, we can actually use the scanning code, so you can actually, and maybe the first time ever that you can actually scan in through code using QR code, so that's something we've been doing here. First 10 people to create a create an Ethereum wallet, take a screenshot and email it to me at anthony@decentral.ca. I got 10 Ether for you. Okay? First 10 people, create an Ethereum wallet and just take a screenshot and email it to me. And I will send you
one person with an iPad out right now.
All right, so the first 10, no time limit on it, but whoever gets the first 10 people.
Then you can see, it's hard to keys.
If you use the password, it's
Sounds
you can see the whole private key in the address bar on the bottom.
Mobile phone or password, either way, your private key will be on the screenshot.
You're not going to see the whole thing. And if you are worried about that, create a new one after that and send it over. Okay, so we got drinks over here. There's wine, there's chips and pop. We'll grab something to drink in a couple minutes. We got Joy Krug from Augur going to come on talk with the crowd cell.
So Joe, when you are starting to speak?
I think 8:30. Joey, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hey man, how
Hey
are
Joe.
you?
Hey.
Do you know Roman? Have you met Roman before?
No, I don't.
So this is Roman Mandalay. He's actually sitting over in that corner over there, and he built the Java implementation.
Oh, cool.
And he built frontier.ether.camp as well as a web-based IDE that's going to be released at some point soon. It's quite beautiful.
What's the web-based IDE called?
Yeah, we're doing some.
I like to call it Romanide, but he doesn't like it very much.
Hey, they put you on the big TV there on the room.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Careful not to pick your nose.
Yeah.
Joey, can you hear us?
yeah, I can hear you.
Joey, nod if you can hear me. Yeah, okay.
Okay, we're going to release attention, please. First up, I'd like to apologize to the people online who were... Can I get your attention, please? Antoine. Sorry, guys, we're recording this conversation, people listening on the internet, and we have the microphone back there, so we've got to make sure that we're keeping it really quiet back there. I've got to apologize to people online that were trying to watch the first part of this. It didn't work. Unfortunately, it's working now. So they're going to be able to hear Joey. And Joey, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Josh? Yes, Joey, if you can hear us.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't think you can hear us.
I can hear you, but
The camera's there. Joey, can you hear me?
yep.
Okay, give us a couple minutes still. We're going to get this figured out.
Joey, can you hear me? You heard me before.
Yep. Yeah, I can hear you.
Yep, he's nodding. We just can't hear him. You're not muted though, Joey, are you?
No.
Well, he's, yeah, see, he's. I mean, this is our audio. He can definitely hear us.
Yeah, so we gotta make sure he's, like, ours is good, but his doesn't seem to be good for some reason.
Can you guys hear me? This is Joseph Lubin.
Turn up.
Can you hear me?
No, but he's not answering.
Hi, Joey.
Hi. Yeah, I can still hear you guys.
Joey, can you confirm once again that you can hear me for Anthony? Just give us a big nod.
Yeah.
Big nod.
I think we are all set here. Sorry for the delay. If I can please get everybody's attention, please keep it down.
Are we good to go? Hello? Okay, can you guys hear me now? Hello? Hey.
Say something now? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
There we go. All right. Good old Skype. Sounds crazy, Joe. We had about a minute delay there. It wasn't going to work out. So unfortunately,
Okay.
So what was wrong with the project? Start off with our familiar with Augur, talk about the crowd sale, what led up to the crowd sale, how it's doing. So you can tell me how much you guys are bringing in. Give us, just talk about the project.
Yeah, so basically Augur is a project that we started working on back in August of 2014. And the goal was basically to build a prediction market basically on a blockchain. And we basically got the inspiration by seeing this idea called TruthCoin and started reading. We read that white paper. We read a white paper by these guys from Princeton. And so basically we started implementing it on Bitcoin Core. And then eventually realized that that was kind of a pain, easier to implement it on. We basically looked at Ethereum for a while, and then eventually decided to switch to it in like early November. We've been working on Ethereum ever since. So for prediction market, for those who don't know, is basically it's a financial market. It's a very broad financial market, and any other financial market can essentially be implemented as a subset of a prediction market. So whether you're speculating on stocks, to a sports match, to weather, to an insurance contract, you can implement it as part of a prediction market. And the problem with them is historically they've had centralized custody of funds. So you have like the Mt. Gox problem. And so by using Ethereum, we don't have that problem. And so we've been working on that since then. We launched an alpha in June. The way our software works, so there's two aspects of the prediction market. There's buying and selling shares of the outcomes of events. And basically, if you pick the right side, you get $1 per share that you bought. And if you're wrong, you lose your money. And one of the aspects is you have to basically determine the outcomes. So what actually happened after the event. So if you're speculating on who will become president in 2016 after the U.S. elections, you basically need someone to report what actually happened. And since Ethereum contracts don't have, we have to like involve real people to do that. And so instead of just trusting, a handful of people, what we decided to do was basically do a reporting system where a bunch of people tell you what happened. And to provide an incentive for that, you basically need two things. One, you need something that sort of functions like a big bond, essentially a bond saying, I'll put this much on the line that I'm telling you the truth about some outcome. And then the other thing you need is a way to incentivize those people. And so that's what reputation is. It's essentially a bond and incentivization mechanism. And so if you own reputation, you get half the trading fees in the system multiplied by the fraction of reputation you have. And the other half, one party who made the markets and decided what markets to be on the system. With Augur, anybody can trade a market on pretty much whatever they want. They can just choose how much initial liquidity they want to provide to it to essentially kick it off. They can set the trading fee. They can set when it expires, and they can even determine the parameters of the market. Do you want to have a simple binary yes or no market, categorical market, which is like X, Y, or Z, scalar markets, which are basically a range of numbers, or you can even combine them to create multi-dimensional markets. And so basically we sold reputation in a crowd sale that started like mid-August to essentially kick off this initial distribution of reputation in the system. And so the key part of the sale is that you really want as many people in as wide a distribution and reputation. Because if a handful of people own it, it kind of defeats the purpose. And so for some initial stats on the sale, we've sold around $4.8 million worth so far. And of that, there have been around 4,100 people who have basically signed up on the sale site. Of those people, there's been about 2,300 or so who've bought in. And most of the purchases are pretty like, there's not like a huge concentration of whales, I guess what I'd say. We ran the numbers on whales, and basically we took like $10,000 as a cutoff mark for right now, and that's a lot smaller than we thought it would be. So that's actually really, really good news. Let's see what else. Oh, one of the other things I was asked to kind of touch on was updating contracts. So I guess I'll segue to that. So essentially on Ethereum, one of the things you have to do is if you have a complex smart contract system like ours, you have a lot of contracts. On ours, we have like 25 different contracts, and they all communicate with each other. And so one problem is, well, how do you update them without basically losing data? And so what we've kind of done is we've basically separated two parts of the contracts. We've put in all the functions in different contracts, and then we've put all the data structures in the methods to basically get and set the data structures in separate files. And then the function files reference the data structure files. And the data structure files are kind of they're more constant, I guess you would say. It's a bigger deal to upgrade one of those, because if it has a lot of data, it means basically migrating data over to a new contract. And so it's kind of a pain to upgrade those contracts. And then as for the mechanism, since we have reputation and it's essentially kind of a weighted reporting or voting system, to update contracts, we essentially just plan to allow people to basically vote on whether they want to accept the change or not. So right now, we're just pushing code, and that's what the consensus is, because we're just in beta right now, or in alpha right now. But eventually, once the system's live, it'll be determined by the miners with Augur. It'll be determined by the reporters. So we'll push code, and the reporters are basically going to say, do we want to accept these changes, or are we going to reject it, and say no. Let's see. And then one update I have is in like a day or two, I basically just need to polish up the formatting and stuff. I have a blog post ready about basically a few hundred events at a time, or a few hundred market scales at volume like they want it to. And then I guess after that, I would just open it up to Q&A if you want to ask questions, because that's usually the most exciting part of these things anyways, is the questions and answers after the fact. So I heard what's the riskiest assumption the team's making. Was there any qualifier to that, or just in general? Oh. I guess the riskiest assumption is probably a shelling point, and that's it's something that makes a ton of logical sense, but it's not something you can really prove 100% until you test it in practice.
Reputation matters, whether that's enough, when you're concerned with regulations, you're concerned with, issues with political share securities. Something like that.
So I don't really have any serious concerns with that because essentially with reputation, it's, you know, it doesn't really meet the duck rule to me, or to our lawyers' opinions matter. But anyways, you know, essentially reputation, if you don't use it, it's actually taken away from you. You know, if it were an actual share, you would just receive dividends for, you know, just holding it essentially. But you don't. You have to report on events every 2 months to even receive anything at all. And if you don't, it basically disappears. Well, not disappears. It's redistributed to those who do report. And so it's pretty different than any traditional, you know, sort of thing you could even consider a security. I couldn't hear that. Josh, do you want to send me that question on Slack? Because it just sounds really muffled. I couldn't really hear it.
Does that make better?
Yeah, that sounds better.
Okay, how many of you have worked on the project right now, and where are the mostly located?
Okay. So our official headquarters are in like San Francisco, but we're pretty distributed. I'm located in Illinois. Jack's located in Oregon. Jack's one of the other developers on the project. Scott's our UI developer. He's located in Oakland. Jeremy does like communication stuff. He's in San Francisco. Chris, who works on the back end stuff with me, is located like right outside of SF. Where we just added in like June, who's named Perry, who actually lives in Spain. So we're a pretty distributed team. So I think it would. It really it's a cliche answer. I mean, but it really comes down to, I think, a couple things. One is there has to be, you know, real demand for what you're building from the community you're marketing to. And I guess, you know, Factom's a cool project, but it kind of focuses on things that maybe more big institutions are interested in. In prediction markets, while big institutions, that's one of the big things. The other thing is just really engaging with the community, I guess I would say. You know, we've basically been, you know, on the Ethereum Reddit, on the Augur Reddit for quite a few months now, and we've been on the Ethereum one for a really long time. And basically just having an open dialogue, you know, essentially like we really respond to almost anything. You know, even things that most people would consider as you know, being a comment that goes too far, that's like, you know, critical or something, I'll still respond to it. And you know, sometimes the person doesn't agree with you, but sometimes they actually are like, wow, that's actually pretty interesting. And so I think mainly just, you know, actually communicating really well with the community and keeping a direct dialogue between the community and us, and you know, making sure we listen to what they want is really been the key to our success, I guess. So I think the question was what we use the funds for. So Okay, so I guess Joshua was typing it, but he stopped. So anyways, I think the question was, how are we going to access the funds? I'll just talk about what we're doing with the funds, I guess, more broadly, and maybe I'll answer the question. So basically, we plan to put, basically like $1 million away, like in basically like low risk bonds, essentially, just in case we ever need it for basically legal fees, in case we get sued for anything. And then we plan to spend some money basically on more legal stuff that's not, a defense fund. And that's mainly to basically with DCR, if you just look into the history of prediction markets. And then beyond that, money would be used basically some money for marketing, and then for salaries. The main thing about money, I guess, is the easiest thing to do is probably for us to just publish a budget once the sale ends. I have something preliminary I've written up, but once we have like all the final numbers after we sell all the Bitcoin and everything, it'd be easier to actually have something that's not just an napkin calculation. And then we'll publish those and basically publish, what our main expenses are. Because I don't really have any problem with doing that, and people seem interested in it. Most of it's pretty boring stuff, but it's good to be open. Hi.
I think the regulation of regulatory establishment is a big concern. You just mentioned that your team is only located in the U.S., where even the team is in different countries. Have you considered how locate some of the members outside the U.S. so that reduce that risk?
So I guess there's two things. So one, we do have one member outside the U.S. Perry is located in Spain. But with the agencies that are interested in CFTC, their regulations really apply not just to U.S. companies, not just to U.S. citizens. It's one of those instances where U.S. laws essentially are applied to the entire world, and so having people outside the U.S., I guess, it might help a little bit, but the lawyers we've talked to have said it doesn't really help that much, since the regulations surrounding prediction markets are essentially pretty global regulations. By global, I mean not that the rest of the world has the same views as the U.S. on prediction markets, but that the U.S. basically applies their regulations globally. Pardon?
Do you think that you establish best practices with development with your project? And like we have WWC, so a consortium, have you laid the editors down? How are you testing the things? And are you using big data at the back end, like MongoDB and things like that? I know I have 3-4 questions, but
So basically, as far as something like the W3C, I think one of the upcoming speakers is working on something that's called like the Smart Contracts Foundation, which is essentially similar to that sort of idea. And basically, we at Augur would be interested in joining that and essentially, collaborating with them to basically create, ways for dApps to sort of communicate together that are pretty standardized. There's a standardized contract API, by the way, which does do some of that stuff. Let's see. Oh, it's for testing and best practices. So right now, our code would probably not be the place to look for best practices, to be honest. And the reason for that is it was essentially, so it's like 25 or 30 contracts, and it was written to really get a rough working alpha out there that actually did what we said we wanted to do. And so, looking at our code after it's reached beta, when we basically refactor a ton of stuff to make it scale, then it'd be a better example to look at, I guess. But if you're looking for like a wide variety of ways you can use Serpent and sorts of things like that, which is what we use, by the way, we use the Serpent contract language, you would want to check both our repos, have a lot of those, on basically GitHub/Augur project. And then there's also a bunch of examples in the Serpent repo itself, but some of those are a bit out of date. And then the other thing is testing, the way we test stuff. So there's two facets of testing here. There's also the MongoDB thing, but let's do testing for now. So testing, you can test from UI perspective, which contacts the middle layers, which then does RPC calls to the Ethereum that basically can test Augur.js. And testing Augur.js is a good way to test things because you can pass it parameters that you know a certain function should return and check the return value and see whether it works in practice on chain. Another way we test things is we basically run tests through PyEthereum. So that's how I've done a lot of the Consensys testing, because I don't want to test something with 50,000 events at once actually on chain, because it would take a while to do on chain. And in addition, the mining between blocks kill my MacBooks. For a lot of the internal contract stuff. It's basically Python. So right now we actually don't have any database in the backend to store data. So right now if you use our UI, it's really slow because what it will do is it will ping the Ethereum network, and then it will just download all the data via RPC calls. So there's two things we're looking to do for that data. One short-term to get rid of the lag, and another long-term to basically stay decentralized. So the short-term one is basically set up a server, use traditional database, something like MongoDB, and basically store Augur, so store all the market data, store the price history, things like that, and basically just keep hashes of it in the database so you can verify that it's actually legit compared to what the network hash is. And then the second thing is to eventually migrate over to something like IPFS or Swarm, which is basically a distributed file store. So instead of the data being on one server, it's stored across a bunch of computers, and you basically say, I have this hash, I want the data associated with it, and they give it to you. And that's how our UI will basically get data long term. I think that's all those questions.
Are you done?
Yeah.
What do you want?
Oh, from McDonald's?
Yeah.
Let's see.
You got me more?
Sure.
I'm sorry. So your tacos only like half hour?
Yeah.
So Joey, I have the day of the scope off, and the other day I was just working a 5 to 7 shift, so I'll find somebody to cover that, okay?
Okay.
I can take you both days. Oh, here's your stuff, I'm thinking about it.
Okay. I'm not sure. Can I just come west from the side like that?
Sure.